Welcome one, welcome all to the greatest show of them all. It is the NFC East Mixtape Volume 97. We have never done a mixtape like this ever before. I can confidently say that. And if you have missed all 96 volumes before this, shame on you. Where can you access them? On any one of SB Nation's NFC East blog podcast networks. You can also watch it on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel or the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel. He is Brandon Lee Gowton from BGN. I am RJ Ochoa from BTB. And Brandon, the Philadelphia Eagles are headed to the Super Bowl. Congratulations.
It's true, RJ. And it's really a huge development for the NFC East mixtape listeners, the mixologists, as you call them, because we get three more weeks, three, including this one, three more podcasts of in-season NFC East mixtape podcasts, as opposed to, like, imagine if, because this week for the Super Bowl bye.
It would only be 2 weeks.
Lead up to the Super Bowl, and then like the reaction show.
Oh,
I'm counting that in there. Like that's cool.
You said in the regular season. That third one would technically be out of season. It would be out of the window. Yeah, but like, you're right. It would be related to the season. I agree.
You get what I'm talking about, as opposed to I don't know, they're hiring this. It would not be very interesting otherwise, because like there isn't any kind of head coaching or GM hires, these big hires going on in the division. There's some coordinator stuff, but okay, whatever. That's really not the same level of juice as some of the other hires would be. So I'm excited in part for just the content, but obviously very incredible that the Eagles are back in the big game for the second time since 2017.
Second time in 6 years. I got into a Twitter debate with somebody. Like, it's 6 years. You have to count 2017. You know what I mean? Like, you can't say like second time in 5 years, because of, like, you don't count the end point for that.
6
Super Bowl
seasons,
run.
I think, is the better way to phrase it.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So, like, if they were to win, it would be 2 out of 6, not 2 out of 5. That's all I'm saying. Like, let's just be mathematically correct. Okay, we have a lot to get to. Obviously, the Eagles heading to the Super Bowl and the Kansas City Chiefs, all that stuff. Before we do, though, Brandon, we haven't read reviews in a while. We have 2 from the Blog and the Boys side of things and 2 from the Bleeding Green Nation side of things. Where would you like me to start?
And 1 from Hogshaven, maybe, but you weren't sure about that.
That one is very strange. I actually think let's build up to the Eagles ones. I'm here to be very nice to the Eagles. Your team's in the Super Bowl. I want you to enjoy it. So I'm doing the proverbial olive branch, even though we had an issue with that expression. Okay, so from the BTB side of things, 5-star rating comes to us from Joe's Lunch, titled Best Podcast for NFL's Best Division. Great podcast. No teams with losing records. No bad episodes. I was legitimately worried the Cowboys would end their playoff futility streak, but thankfully they came through, and now we can break out this nugget. This is a Eagles fan, if it isn't obvious. Hey, RJ, last time the Cowboys made the NFC Championship, neither of the quarterbacks in this year's game were even born. Obviously talking about Jalen Hurts and, at the time, Brock Purdy. Again, we'll touch on that. There was one, and I think we both will love this, from GOB Frog, 5-star rating. It is titled Stats with 3 hearts, a red heart, a green heart, and a blue heart. And then several exclamation points. These 3 men, that is who I have tuned in for, in all caps, every week. Today's was my favorite episode of the Look Ahead. Yeah, we obviously had Stats on last week to preview the NFC Championship game. A bit of a bummer for him, but everybody go check out the Gold Standard Podcast Network that Stats has put together. Really impressive work. Not shocking whatsoever to see Stats grinding away these days. Are you ready for the BGN ones now, Brandon?
Yeah, let's see it.
Okay. 5-star rating from LT-Gray, titled Colorado Love. It's a little bit long, so I'm going to blitz through this. Hey, Brandon and RJ, longtime listener, and just wanted to say how much I have enjoyed listening to this show over the years. I moved from Philly to Northern Colorado in 2014 and have been listening to BGN since 2017. This show is my all-time favorite BGN show. I love being able to keep up with the news from the rest of the division, and now have exactly one Cowboys fan, RJ, whose opinion I care about. Denver Sports Talk Radio is absolute trash. I only listen to make me realize how good real sports towns have it when it comes to sports media. The worst part of the pandemic was losing my morning commute when I would get to listen to BGN every day. Now I primarily listen to the NFC East Mixtape because the back and forth that y'all have is awesome. P.S. I've heard the NFC East called the NFC least years before hearing it on this podcast. I've heard it before I ever even knew what a podcast is. Pick a different hill to die on, you jabronis. All the love from a group of diehard Birds fans out west. Finally,
strong review.
This one will be even stronger for you. Not a fan of it personally. From Bale the Bard, 5-star rating, titled RJ is the most hardworking podcaster around. Bit of a, lull. RJ's dedication to his bit is truly outstanding. He is unwavering in his portrayal of a crybaby Cowboy fan. It is hilarious tuning into the podcast and listening to RJ represent Cowboys fans as insufferable losers. He constantly talks over co-host whenever he can and refuses the mildest criticism. This is comedy gold. Keep on roasting Cowboys fans, RJ. I told you.
It is pretty.
I came here to be kind and read everything and just do the song and dance.
It is pretty crazy how you're an Eagles fan and you just do this bit where you pretend to be a Cowboys fan for the sake of the show and the ratings and everything, and it's working out. So I'm proud of you. Good job. We have a lot of fun here, and I think the listeners make it even more fun. So we appreciate the feedback. And again, excited to have a few more weeks here of actual in-season stuff, the big game to talk about.
Let me be very clear. So, obviously you're going to, I don't know that you want to talk about the Chiefs. By the way, we will have Pete Sweeney on from Arrowhead Pride next week on the NFC East Mixtape to talk about the Chiefs and that side of things. Pete is somebody I do another show with. I am the hardest working podcast around. I'm fine with that. I think that's a fair categorization of things. But I want to declare this, and I want every Cowboys fan to agree with me. I'm going to command you to agree with me. Eagles fans get to say whatever they want. And if I was an Eagles fan, I'm not. You should brag. You should be obnoxious. I think some people, all fan bases, take it too far sometimes. But your team is in the Super Bowl. Rub it in everybody's faces. You and I say this all the time. This is what you follow sports and root for teams for. You should take every victory lap possible. You might lose, and so what? You got there. Cowboys haven't been there in almost 30 years. This is the Eagles. I tweeted this out, and I know you loved it. They have now been in the NFC Championship game. This was true a week ago. 7 times since the Cowboys last were. They have been to 3 Super Bowls. They've obviously won one. They may wind up winning 2. And I noted this, and you said it on Monday Football Monday. They are the standard, the modern standard within the NFC East. Maybe in the NFC overall, the Niners have a bit of a claim there. Granted, they haven't won a Super Bowl, but they are the modern standard. I know the Giants have won 2 Super Bowls, but they were both fluky. They don't have this sustained level of success the way that the Eagles do, although part of it coming with the head coach who they will face off against next Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of discourse, it seems, about how the Eagles have this fortunate path to be here or whatever, which honestly, I'm not really putting.
It's objectively fair. I mean, but who cares? You know what I mean? But it is a fair thing to say.
I mean, they play in a division, as we noted earlier in the review, that didn't have a team with a losing record. They played in arguably the best division in the NFL.
Those were 2 of their 3 losses. To your point, I won't interrupt, but
okay, but still, but I'm saying it's not like this is they had a total cake schedule the whole time. They just beat. They not that only did they beat, they destroyed 2 teams where the coaches of those 2 teams are the 2 of the 3 finalists for Coach of the Year. You know what I mean? It's not so whatever. I'm not going to say they're getting disrespected, because I think that's really not the case. I think some of that discourse is a little weak to me. Because again, like I said on Monday Football Monday, and like I said just now, they're destroying these teams. This is historical. This is historical domination, what they're doing. And again, what they did to the 49ers in terms of knocking their quarterbacks out of the game, that wasn't just luck. They were hitting them and being physical. They've the most ferocious pass rush in the NFL. That's going to happen. They're going to knock out other quarterbacks. That's part of the game. They weren't doing it illegally in a cheap shot or some kind of weird fluke play. They were physical. They're a physical team. So they deserve to be here. I guess maybe I'm more subdued than I thought I would be. I'm not. If you're not watching the podcast on YouTube, which you should check out on either the Bleeding Green Nation or Blogging the Boys YouTube channel, I'm not smiling like I was last week when the Cowboys were eliminated, because obviously I enjoyed that more for your bit. But
it's your bit, actually, not mine. But go ahead.
It's just about that the season. It's about winning the Super Bowl. So I guess that's part of it. This team has been so great. So I expected them to be here, especially when they won the number 1 seed. I expected this. Now you have to go out and beat the Kansas City Chiefs. So
at some point we have to do an episode that's just titled "Multiple Things Can Be True," because I think this is a case for multiple things can be true.
Every episode.
Right. But so one true thing is the Eagles' schedule is not the most formidable one of all time. Okay, cool. Another potentially true thing is that they might win the Super Bowl. Does anybody care? You know what I mean?
It still counts. Does it?
No, but that's what I'm saying. Eagles fans are the Eagles in general are a great example of who cares? Does it matter? At the time, if it was fun to make fun of, but does any Eagles fan look back and be like, oh man, we didn't win the Super Bowl with our franchise quarterback, winning MVP of the game? Who cares? You won the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Do you think Broncos fans care that when they won the Super Bowl, Peyton Manning was a shell of himself? No, they won the Super Bowl with Peyton Manning. Do you think that Rams fans care that they had the worst title defense of all time?
Right.
No, because they won the Super Bowl.
And so they don't have fans.
Right. That's true too. So if the Eagles win the Super Bowl, like it's the ultimate multiple things could be true. I think where maybe the discourse is coming from on a national level, because I am kind of stunned personally at the amount of like takedom that there is that, the Eagles haven't played anybody. I think people feel robbed. And that's not the Eagles' fault. I just think people were like bummed that like we didn't get to see what looked like a great NFC championship game on paper. So it just feels I don't mean inauthentic that the Eagles they deserved it. They blasted the Niners. They totally deserve to be here. But like it just feels like, fraudulent from this game standpoint. It's just like a bummer. You know what I mean? That's fine. Like people are allowed to feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it. It still could have been a blowout if Purdy doesn't get hurt for all we know, because their
Sure.
Eagles defensive line was dominating. Like
That's
they were
totally true.
crushing. They were just crushing, and it was like, oh my gosh. And like that's part of the Brock Purdy went last in the draft for a reason. Like part of that reason is
We don't have to do this.
no,
We don't have
but
to
I'm
hate on
saying
Brock
it's true.
Purdy.
Like if you look at his physical attributes, he's not a very big dude. So he might not be like the most durable guy. He's a tiny dude, and he's not like super athletic. So that's a concern. That's a legitimate reason why someone like goes that late in the draft. I'm not trying to discredit what he did. I'm just saying like there is a reason he got drafted that late. It wasn't just like a total fluke. And also on the schedule point, okay, can we look at the Chiefs schedule for a second here and point
I was
out
going
like
to do this.
where are their wins that I'm supposed to be like blown away by? Oh wow, that's incredibly impressive. They beat the Jags. Okay, the Eagles beat the Jags, and okay, so that's a team.
So, well, let me ask you this, so we can like set this up, like the Chiefs schedule point. What would you say, and you can include the playoffs if you want, are the three most impressive Eagles wins? And you can define that how you want, like from week 1 to now. What are the three biggest, most authoritative wins that they have had?
I mean, definitely the Vikings game in week 2.
Okay,
They just totally
playoff.
shut
It's a
down
playoff team, even though you
Justin
hated on
Jefferson.
them, but playoff team.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't like amazing, but it's certainly a quality win.
Right.
They destroyed the Titans, who were like,
Um,
I mean,
I'm
they
not
were
like
leading
there are
the
a lot to choose
division and
from. I
went
wouldn't
down
pick
to the
that one.
wire. But I mean, they destroyed them. It's 35-10. And I'm looking else here. I mean, they also blew out the Giants 48-22. The Giants were kind of banged up in that game. It was on the road. I mean, there's the Giants playoff game, 38-7. You could pick that one instead if you want. And the 49ers, the Chiefs also beat the 49ers. And where is that win that the Chiefs have that is so great that the Eagles don't have? Okay, you want to say this championship game against the Bengals? Okay, great. That's one game. So you're basing it all off of that one game. I mean, the Chiefs lost to the Colts. The Eagles beat the Colts. I know it was close, but they didn't lose to them. The Chiefs lost to the Bills. Chiefs lost to the Bengals in the regular season. The Chiefs had to go to overtime against the Texans. The Chiefs did not cover in both games against the Broncos late in the season. Like, where are these super impressive wins that the Chiefs have that the Eagles are lacking?
So my answer for the Eagles, as far as impressive wins, I would say the Viking, and I'm going chronologically here. The Vikings win is one of the three.
Yeah.
I would put the Cowboys win just because, I mean, they
Okay.
neutralized Micah Parsons. And I realize I'm biased, but like that was a Cowboys team that had caught fire and they
Yeah, they
neutralized
were
them.
undefeated
They
with Cooper Rush. Yeah.
Right. They did what they wanted to do against them specifically. That I think the Titans one was the biggest like flex win, but I mean like again, some of that is just and I'm not taking away from it. Some of this is the Titans, but I would put the Giants playoff win. Like that was so boring because they killed them. You know what I mean? Like it was so boring. Now on the other hand, the Chiefs' most impressive wins. This was what I wanted to kind of get to. I really did not. I was not impressed by their first Chargers win. The one that was the Thursday Night Football debut game. Remember?
Yeah, I would argue the Chargers almost like outplayed them in that game.
Right. So the first one was kind of like whatever. The Bucks win was kind of, and at the time we still kind of thought highly of the Bucks. That was
Yeah.
really impressive, like how they kind of ran away from it. And
I had the Chiefs as my lock of the week in that week. I remember that
well,
vividly.
the Niners win was like super impressive. And I know there was the quarterback stuff like on the San Francisco
Yes.
side of things. And I know Christian McCaffrey was still newer, but like nobody did that to the
Sure.
Niners. Like I know the Eagles just did, but you get my point. Like it was really like kind of holy crap. Like this is just who the Chiefs are. The
Mhm.
second Chargers win was a little bit quality to me. But yeah, I mean, and this was it's funny now, by the way, you didn't let me crap on the Chiefs when they struggled against the Texans right after the Cowboys did, but they struggled against the Broncos barely,
Yeah.
and then they went to
They didn't
overtime
cover
against
the
the
spread in
no,
both
they
games.
and then they went to overtime against the Texans. They struggled against the Broncos near the end of the regular season.
Mhm.
So I was more impressed with like things they did in the regular season, and some of that is the Mahomes injury in the playoffs. Like, I do think that there's like a Chiefs fatigue
Sure.
that is happening, and so I do think over the next week and a half we're going to see a lot of people like kind of come in. Like, and the Eagles, I do not share this opinion. I think non-NFC East people like the Eagles. They view them as cool and fun, and like they have a lot of fun personalities. Like that part's objectively true. There's going to be a lot of Eagles love coming in as like next week unfolds, especially because people are kind of like, I think like, the Chiefs really went after Joe Burrow and the Bengals for like all the talk they did in their post games. Like, you guys are kind of like the pot calling the kettle black right now. You know what I mean? Like, and you won, so you deserve to do it. But like, I don't know. This is a weird Super Bowl for me.
Last thing on the Titans, because you kind of pushed back against that, and I get it. They fell apart clearly
Right.
towards the end of the year, but I mean, what about when the Chiefs played them in Kansas
Sure.
City and then we won by 3 points in overtime against Malik Willis, starting his first game, right? Who completed
Who threw like 5 passes that game.
he completed 5 passes out of 16 attempts for 80 yards. He did not complete a pass to a wide receiver. Like, for as much as the Titans fell apart, they're typically still were like a tough team, a team that, we said that going into the game. They're
Sure.
going to play teams tough. That's typically what they do under Vrabel. Eagles just kicked their butts. Like, for a team that had a tough reputation, the Eagles just like had their way with them. So
Kick their
I definitely
butts.
count that.
Not
It's
a
true.
often used expression. But I do find it just funny. It doesn't mean anything, but like that 2 of the teams who played both of the Super Bowl teams very tough were the Indianapolis Colts and the Houston Texans. Like, and I know that the Eagles kind of walked away or ran away with the game, but like, what was it? It was
They won by
close at
like 12.
halftime. Yeah, but it
Yeah,
was like, it wasn't like close, but it was kind of like, at halftime of that game. And obviously they went to overtime, and the Colts beat the Chiefs, and it took the Jalen Hurts touchdown at the end of the Colts game for the Eagles to win. It's just, kind of funny, like, the way the NFL can be. I want to ask you a question, and I asked you this on Slack, but I want to have the conversation here because there's going to be a lot of coverage, and everybody check out BGN Radio and BleedingGreenNation.com for all the coverage, obviously, as the next 2 weeks unfold. But is this there's no loss, and you said this, there's no loss that sucks. Like, you lose the Super Bowl, so like it innately sucks, but like, you're, as an Eagles fan, you've won a Super Bowl very recently, so there's nothing that can like destroy you, right? You can't be a Falcons fan after this. But the Chiefs do, like, I think there is Chiefs fatigue because people are kind of like, our buddy Stats once said something that I think about so often. He said, we don't have to invent reasons why Patrick Mahomes is great, right? People, did you just change things you're drinking?
Yeah, I'm some water.
So you went from like coffee to water, like mid-show?
You have to hydrate because coffee is going to dehydrate you, and it's going to make you tired if you don't drink water as well.
I'm just saying, like, it was a very strange thing to see 2 different cups show up all of a sudden. So
I'm thirsty, man.
But people do that, right? Like, people, like, even the Titans win, like, oh, Mahomes, like, it's like, and he's like, we'll both like fully admit he's a great player. He's the most talented quarterback in the NFL, all objective fact and whatever. But like, there is like an overkill, you know what I mean, of like exacerbating their greatness. And we talk about that all the time. We talk about how people act like he's already won 5 Super Bowls. And I think it would be very annoying to be the team that kind of gave him his second one and sent it into a different stratosphere. And that, like, whatever. Again, you're fine taking that risk because it's a Super Bowl. So like, does this set up the most annoying potential reality if the Eagles lose?
Not really. I honestly don't feel that way. I don't really care about the Chiefs. Like, it's not like a rivalry. Like, I don't.
Sure.
Wow, we got to beat Andy Reid. Like, I don't. I never loved Andy as much as the people who really did here in Philly at the time. I didn't hate him. I was more indifferent. I just felt like he was never my coach because I came into Eagles fandom at a point where he was already here. So like, I did feel like I wasn't like attached to it where we came up together. Like, he was kind of just like the I don't know, I don't know if lame duck is the word, but it's like
A
in
sitting
the
president
NFL,
when you showed up.
I guess. But it's like, hey, like when you're a head coach, let's say, and you inherit this quarterback that you're not really married to, but they're kind of like successful, so you have them around. But in an ideal world, you kind of get your own guy at some point, and there's just something special about starting fresh and being on the ground floor with that. I was never like that with him, so I'm a little bit more indifferent towards Andy. I was happy when they won the Super Bowl because, like, cool, if the Eagles can't win, then why not?
Sure.
Like,
But
Andy
he's
Reid.
not Doug. Doug was your guy, like, to your, like,
Yeah,
the ground floor type of thing. I got you. Okay.
exactly. So it was just a different feel. So I don't really care. I'm not going to be upset if the Eagles lost to Andy. Like, how could they? Like, it doesn't really
Yeah,
bother me.
I don't know, and no one should be upset. He's like, and plus he's a Hall of
He's a
Fame
great
coach.
head coach.
Like, so, like,
And
and
he
he's
lost to
like, his thing is being elite after the bye, and he gets a bye,
right.
like, to prepare for this, like, of all things. So yeah.
I mean, it would be concerning if he just like ran circles around Nick Sirianni in game management, because that is clearly not Andy's strength. Like that's an area, and he's gotten better, I think, in that regard than he was in Philly. But that is not an area typically where he's as good. He's better to what you just said in terms of like the preparation standpoint, like in making the game plan. That he's elite, no doubt. But actual in-game management decisions, not as good. And you saw that late in the Chiefs game at one point where they're like punting from the opposing 37-yard line or whatever it was. Like he's just not the best at that kind of stuff, where I think your boy, RJ, Nick Sirianni, deserves a lot of credit. Your boy is 5-0 against the finalists for Coach of the Year and is not a Coach of the Year finalist himself. He's clearly not the only factor that really, he's not the straw that stirs the drink alone in Philly, because you have so much talent here. And there's a big ecosystem of support in terms of analytics. That being said, he's still ultimately making the call to go for it when the Eagles and 49ers are tied at 7-7 and they're at their own 34-yard line at 4th and 1. And that might seem like a no-brainer to go for it. I think it is. But like, I feel like
you don't face the consequence. You know, it's easy for you to say because like you don't have to live with the result if they don't get it.
But you can also say that most coaches do not go for that. That's fair to say, right? In that situation, and he did, and they should, because they're basically unstoppable at sneaking the ball. But like that's huge. That led to a touchdown drive, the 4th and 3 early in the game, where they really could have kicked a field goal, or it would have been a long field goal, short punt. They went for it, and that play, maybe more than any other play in that game, really kind of symbolizes what the Eagles are. And you can say, oh, it wasn't a catch. Well, first of all, it's an incredible effort by Devontae Smith to even make it look like a catch on that play. So you have to give him credit for that. And then him having the football IQ to instantly get up and do that signal that they have prepared to be like, hey, we need to get a snap off. By the way, Kyle Shanahan, just really dumb to me to not throw a challenge flag there, because even if like he did catch it, why would you? It's just you're risking losing a timeout and a challenge, or you're risking giving up 7 points maybe. Which would you rather have?
It's worth that because it was 4th down. You know what I'm saying? Like that's like it's worth it if you can effectively like place the chip of your timeout and like spin the wheel and like turn the ball over. You do it. You know what I'm saying? Like
it's worst case scenario versus best case scenario. What's the worst case scenario? You lose a challenge, you lose a timeout. Okay, is that really like the end of the game? Is that the end of the world? Versus you give up 7 points. 7 points could very much be the difference in the game more than I think the challenge and the timeout.
Did they? I really don't know off the top of my head. And I know the Purdy injury changed everything. But did they even go into halftime having spent all their timeouts? I don't remember off the top of my head. Because I don't think so. If they held a timeout, you can look that up. But like if they held a timeout at halftime, you know what I'm saying? Like if they didn't use all 3, then it's even worse. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like you didn't even use the timeout that you like were so worried about conserving there at the very end. I'm trying to buy you some time.
Well, you also don't even need challenges as much now anymore, because some of these like reviews that kind of just happen.
Like what is the like standard play that you absolutely have to challenge? And it's like scoring plays, turnovers, like all the like important seismic moments are subject to review and naturally. Like what is the play that you really feel like you need the second challenge for?
I don't think they did call their timeouts. I'm looking here at the game log and I'm not seeing it, but
that makes it worse.
Yeah, it's dumb.
So I want to say this. Let me be very clear, and I think I speak for the world, that Nick Sirianni can be a bit much. All right. I think Eagles fans understand that and accept that, but embrace him as their own. And that's totally fair game. I'm not going to fault you for that. But we all know what's going on here. All right. He walks and talks like somebody who has like a big army behind him, right? Like I don't want to say like he's like it's like some sort of like complex, but you know what? He has a big army behind him. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like he has the analytics department. He has a talented quarterback. He has a talented offensive line. He has these playmaking wide receivers. He has one of the best defensive lines in the NFL, one of the best defenses overall, one of the best secondaries. Like he walks and talks like those are his players. And you know what? Like that's what you should do. Like he's somebody who like people will say like, oh, like they make analogies like, oh, well, he's driving like a Corvette. Like, yeah, well, he knows how to drive it. You know, like not everybody knows how to drive that vehicle. Like some people would like, you know, sit at 30 miles an hour. He
fill it with the wrong gas too.
Yeah, he is so down to like floor it. And I do respect that. And I will say this, I'm going to give you a gift. All right. If the Eagles win the Super Bowl for a mixtape episode of your choosing, I will wear a visor with a highlighter on it. You can pick which one. If you want it to be like the one after or like a random week in June, that's up to you. But if the Eagles win the Super Bowl, you get to cash that in for a mixtape episode.
Thanks for that. I care about this very much. It'll be fun, I guess. I think Sirianni gives the Eagles an edge. I think that's very clear. Shout out to Shul Kapadia. I think like he phrased that. He always phrases that when he talks about head coaches, and I think that is a very simple but true and effective way to evaluate coaching. Does this coach give this team an edge? And I think he does with this fourth down decisions, among other things. The culture, all of it. I feel like the Eagles have an advantage, and I said that going into the matchup against Kyle Shanahan because I'm like he's going to mess up game management stuff. We know what's going to happen, and sure enough, he did. And I trusted Sirianni not to do that. And also, I just think how can you argue the Eagles are not a well coached team? They're a
You
well
can't.
coached team.
So like I'm gonna say some. Like, I'm still trying to like process this. All right. Um, Again on the Sirianni like personality traits or whatever, he very clearly has tried to like embody the like hardcore Philly fan spirit within the team. Like, hear me out. Like that's fair, right? Like it seems that he's tried to do that. I don't know how much I quantify that in sports. Like whatever the team, like and different teams are in different cities, have different cultures, whatever. But I don't think that the quantity is zero. You know what I mean? Like I do believe there is something, and I say this as an Astros fan, right? Like I think there was something to the Astros like wanting to like middle finger the world, right? Like you think our title didn't count, right? Like, like people are human, right? And so like I do think that that drove them to winning the World Series this past year, which is the only thing I have to cope because I have to say like it came against, the city of Philadelphia. So, that's my like one thing. I do think there's something, I don't know if it's tangible, but I do think it's real to like the brazen nature that Nick Sirianni has, whether it's goofy or corny or whatever. If it helps, then who cares? You know what I'm saying? Like if it helps and they win the Super Bowl, then like don't apologize for it because it worked. You know what? If it was a bit, it worked. And who can deny it if it worked? It's a difficult thing to think about and admit. I will say that.
I think there's something to maybe it's reminding me of how people talk about like Josh Allen is the perfect quarterback for Buffalo.
Right,
He like
right.
embodies the fan base. It's like it's a perfect marriage of personalities there. And I think there's definitely something to that in Philly. It is just kind of unique to me about how it's not just about the head coach here, clearly, because Jeffrey Lurie is now seeing three different coaches that have gone to the Super Bowl. That's pretty crazy.
How about your boy Howie, who
And
you always hated on? I had Howie's back here on the mixtape.
Two-time executive of the year by the Pro Football Writers Association. Yeah, I mean, he deserves it. Again, this roster is stacked and he's done a great job and it's really impressive. I do think, you get some luck along the way, but hey, cause I don't think they drafted Jalen Hurts envisioning this exact scenario, but you did draft him knowing that maybe there was this level upside. And again, if we're looking at best case scenario, worst case scenario, maybe you believed in that. I do think with Hurts, if we're going to transition to him, because this was not his A game by any means. He hasn't even been amazing in the playoffs. He was good at the beginning of the Giants game, and they didn't even really need him to carry the offense.
I don't fault him for that because it wasn't necessary for him to be good.
Well, he started strong. He set the
Right.
tone. He was literally perfect. He went 7 for 7 for 89 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And I do think there is something to be said for Hurts simply not turning the ball over against the 49ers because, look at the previous game with Dak doing it twice and look at how the 49ers led the league in interceptions this season. So for him to not do that at all and really never even put the ball in harm's way, like if that's your worst case scenario is that your quarterback takes care of the ball, it's still a pretty good scenario to be able to do that and not lose the game for you. And he did have some big runs in there. One set up the final touchdown. So he was certainly not, I wouldn't say he was like bad by any means, but he wasn't super impactful as you may have, liked to see as, let's say like Mahomes was. And let me be very clear. I think Jalen Hurts needs to have a very big game in the Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes. But there is something to be said still, as I've said all along the season, for Hurts's composure and the way a team takes that personality on, the intangibles there. It's really kind of crazy because for years, I believed like all that stuff is not meaningless, but is so overrated. Just like a player's leadership and like toughness and what, because it's just if they suck, that stuff doesn't matter. It just doesn't. Like you can be the toughest guy or whatever, but if you can't throw the football to the player accurately, then I don't really care. But with Hurts, he's clearly gotten better. But I think he's just at a different level of those kind of intangibles where it actually has this impact. And look, they're 16-1 with him as a starter. And the one game was like kind of, an atypical game.
You
but
could
whatever.
say it was a loss. Like it's okay that he.
But I'm just saying it wasn't like
games.
they got blown out. And it like the one loss is like okay, it was. I understood why they lost. He made some good completions down the field that were like objectively good throws that somehow turned directly into turnovers. It was like a little bit, not typical, but whatever. It's a loss. They lost, but they're 16-1 with him as a starter this season. That's pretty crazy.
I will say this. I think the not meaninglessness of those intangibles is relative to how good you are as a team, right? Like if the Eagles, like again, like this is like worst case hypothetical, they lose a Super Bowl and then we're like 0-5 to start next season, then it's like it's all stupid, right? You know what I mean? It's like, oh, Jalen, quit doing this, man. You know what I mean? Like whatever. But it's like if you're 16-1, it's like everything is good. You know what I'm saying? Like so some of it is that, and some of that like is the Nick Sirianni stuff, right? Like everything is awesome, everything is perfect, everything is the smartest possible, whatever. If you're winning and you have the result, history is written by the winners. We say that all the time here. So like, I mean, there's no reason to doubt it at this point. The analogy, to kind of go back to the car thing, like Sirianni and the Corvette or whatever, that I would like, Hertz has been the, like, you ever play Mario Kart and like you have such a huge lead and you get to the final lap and you're like, I don't need to do anything crazy. I don't need to like, look for the items. I just got to get to the finish line. It feels like he's playing that way. And I say that like in a good way. Like it's wise of him to like be like, you know what? Like we have a stacked roster. Like all I got to do is just like drive this thing and get it through one lap. And you know what? He's gotten to this point that like, if he has to like go all out or whatever in the Super Bowl, it's the Super Bowl. So like, like he's done the job. I was looking right now because I kind of thought I remember this. The last time he threw a touchdown against a non-Giants team was that Titans game. It's just kind of been a weird, end, which I think is why people were a little bit on edge or whatever. But I mean,
Yeah,
again,
and that's some of that's like a little like weird because the Eagles will get to the red zone and they're so good at running it in there that they don't even need to throw it. And he's had rushing touchdowns in there too, which count just as much as if he passes the ball. He did have a rushing touchdown in this game, but again, I do think he needs to be better. I think the most concerning thing is, especially against a 49ers team that we said going into this matchup was vulnerable against deep passing. They allowed the most 50+ passing plays in the NFL. They ranked 6th in terms of giving up yards specifically to the wide receiver position. And this is not a big passing attack day for the Eagles offense. They tried multiple times, just couldn't get it going. For the second week in a row, Hurts overthrew an open A.J. Brown deep, which is kind of weird because A.J. Brown, he's been amazing since training camp, but he's had a quiet playoffs, and that's not, again, all on him. If he's getting open, he's not getting hit on these deep plays. He should have had really 2 touchdowns so far, and probably at least like 70 whatever yards in each game, if not more. So that almost, maybe I'm being silly, but that almost makes me more confident it's going to happen because it just feels like it's going to happen. Like law of averages dictate that like he's going to have a big game, and I feel like maybe it is in the Super Bowl, maybe not. But I feel like the Super Bowl is going to be like this AJ Hurts show.
I haven't thought about the law of averages. Like, what is the like of course thing that's going to happen in the Super Bowl? Like, one of the of course things seems like there's going to be like a Mahomes play. And like to go back to the like annoyance thing. If it were the Cowboys here, I would be not like worried's not the right word because again, you're in the Super Bowl, like you said. But like, I guess the best way to put this is I would have had a much more fun time rooting for the Bengals against the Eagles than I am rooting for the Chiefs. Like, I don't dislike the Chiefs, but I would have like rooted for the Bengals. The Chiefs is a little bit more closer to rooting against the Eagles. Like, I don't have qualms with them, but the Bengals are much more likable to me. Again, like, I don't mean to say the Chiefs are unlikable, but like, I'm just kind of worn out on it. And so like, and if they win, it will be like, oh, now Mahomes has 2, you know what I mean? Like, it'll be all this stuff. And we kind of got that, like, I mean, I brought it up on Monday Football Monday. Like, I don't think he's ever played a playoff game wearing his white jersey. I was trying to think of, I've been trying to ask Steven. I can't find an example. So that's, if I were the Eagles, I'd wear green just to put him in something he's technically literally uncomfortable.
Yeah. I mean, why not? And they will. You asked me this on Monday Football Monday. They're going to wear. I mean, at least I'm very confident they will. Maybe that's actually been announced by the time we're recording this. I was looking back at.
Or by the time it goes out.
Yeah. Well, especially because I remember when the Eagles played in the Super Bowl, they announced it like the Tuesday after they won the championship game. So maybe we'll see that.
So, okay.
The bigger question, sorry, real quick, is the socks. What socks will they get? Will they go with like the white socks or the black socks? We'll see.
The Eagles?
Yeah.
My suggestion would, if you're going green tops, white bottoms, jersey, or pant wise, you got to go black socks.
I think they did black. If I'm not mistaken, they did black socks in the Super Bowl they won. So I feel like you would have to kind of,
it blew up in their face. but I don't know. I mean, they lost, but I loved how all the Chargers wore black cleats in their playoff loss to the Jaguars. That was kind of cool. I really like that. So, and I hope if we get green tops, white bottoms, I hope we get white tops, red bottoms for the Chiefs. That's what I really want to see. This is a good helmet matchup. Last year's helmet matchup sucked. I like, like all the sets and shows have the helmets. It's a good looking helmet matchup. I'm grateful the Eagles are technically the home team. I talked about that because of the logo thing. I did not enjoy last year's helmet matchup. It was disgusting. Like, I don't really like the Rams helmet or the Bengals helmet. Like, it's just whatever.
I think they're unique. I like that part about that.
They're unique, but they'd be difficult to get autographed. And I say that all the time about the Bengals helmet. Like, what would you like? Angle. What do you do? Like
silver Sharpie.
It doesn't. It's not like wax. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna not show up over the black parts. Like you would need it to be like a marker, not a Sharpie. It would have to be like paint almost.
I don't know. Not really an autograph guy. I mean, I give them out, but I don't.
I used to really, really covet autographs. I don't know at what point like a selfie with somebody became more valuable than an autograph, but that did happen. Over the course of life.
I don't like bothering people. I don't know.
Okay, so obviously BGN, all things Super Bowl. And again, we'll have Pete Sweeney on from Arrowhead Pride next week to talk about the Eagles-Chiefs matchup specifically. And again, if you want to hear the Niners angle on losing the NFC Championship game to the Eagles, head on over to the Gold Standard Podcast Network and our friend Rob Stats Guerra. Do want to kind of get through some incidental things. I had a few things on the Google Doc that I'm sure I thought this was kind of me, just shouting myself out. I did a lot of the like clerical and logistical work for this episode because Brandon is covering a team in the Super Bowl. So I'm trying to help you out. I'm trying to be like a good friend, a good teammate here.
Yeah, I'm not ready to do any kind of like Super Bowl prediction thing yet. I don't, I'm all about the vibes, as the listeners know, but I don't really have a strong vibe feeling on this game yet. I think part of it's just, it's so far away in my mind. Like I have so much to do before this game is played that I'm not ready to think about it yet. But that's where I'm at.
Quick piece of news related to the NFL. Just saw this Ian Rappaport noting that the Baltimore Ravens are expected to place the exclusive franchise tag on Lamar Jackson. I did want to say one thing about this. This game will be talked about a lot, obviously, in the coming weeks, but this is also a preview of next week's regular season matchup. The Eagles, all NFC East teams will visit the AFC West teams that they finished in the same place as in the 2022 regular season. So the Eagles will visit the Chiefs, the Cowboys will visit the Chargers, the Giants will visit the Raiders, and the Commanders will visit the Broncos in 2022. So it will either be like this. This is a candidate, I suppose, to maybe be the Week 1 opener, right? We've seen that happen before. Was it the Panthers Broncos, right? That met in the opener, the season after they met in the Super Bowl. Like if I could see that. Like if the Chiefs won, they're like banner raising night is against the Eagles at Arrowhead. That would really suck, but just kind of is what it is. We'll see though. We have a few more things to get to related to the division. Are you ready?
Last thing I want to say on the Eagles is Hassan Reddick. Got to give him credit. I mean, he's been a beast.
What was the better move in if you had to pick one, Hassan Reddick or AJ Brown?
Especially because you just had to give him money. You know what I mean? If you're counting not that AJ was bad. This is clearly like a 1A, 1B kind of thing, but it has to be Hassan because you just gave him money and it was a good deal. I don't think I was looking at his contract recently. I don't even think he's like a top 15 player in terms of edge money. He's 19 and a half sacks in 19 games. That's insane. He's been incredibly productive. These are like high quality sacks to like game changing plays.
Right.
I mean, he's been a beast. Like, it's kind of crazy how he didn't he probably should be a defensive player of the year finalist. Like, I don't know.
I don't know about that. Like,
it's kind of funny though.
He gets penalized by people for playing on an elite defensive line, but
but look at his production the past 2 years though, too. Even like when he was playing for the
Cardinals, that's not related to this year and like defensive player of the year.
But I'm just saying it's not like this production is like fluky. Like he's been consistently doing elite productions. Like maybe this guy's actually good and not just, you can't say the narrative of he's only good now that he's playing in a favorable situation.
But here's a take. If the Eagles win the Super Bowl, he's the best free agent signing specifically in franchise history.
There's been a lot of that. I think
they're better draft picks, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like another like trades or whatever. But like as far as free agent signings and like the impact they had, you could argue if they win the Super Bowl, all you need is 1 year to prove that case.
And that's not like the tallest short person. Like that is like because they signed Malcolm Jenkins. Malcolm Jenkins was like a huge part why they won a Super Bowl and is an amazing like leader and player. And it was previously him, that everyone said was like, the best free agent signing. So that's pretty crazy to be in that consideration, that competition. But yeah, Reddick's been awesome. And look, if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, there's a very, very good chance that Patrick Mahomes is going to be the MVP. Like, who else would it be? Like,
Of the
it's
game, you mean?
yeah, the
Right.
Super Bowl MVP. Because I mean, is it like it seems like it'd be hard for Kelsey to win unless he has like 5 touchdowns or something.
It's
Like, in
it's rare. Like, and you actually have to play like quite poorly as a quarterback to not get it. Like, I thought it was ridiculous that Peyton Manning won it in Super Bowl
yeah,
41.
well,
I thought they should have. Well, again, like some of it's the narrative, right? Like
yeah.
at the time, I mean, I was in high school. I remember thinking like they should have split that between Joseph Adai and Dominic Rhodes. Like they were what won the game for the Colts in the rain against the Bears.
And if the Eagles win, there's kind of a bigger, range of outcomes, who it could be. And I think Reddick would be probably like a good bet for if you're going, especially trying to get value on those odds there. You
Right.
probably like it'd probably be a good value to put a bet on him because he could have a big game where he has like a couple sacks or forced fumble and ends up being the deciding factor.
I
And
think some of that just like I don't mean to interject because
you're good.
all RJ does is interject, but like is just the way the Eagles play. Like you said a little while ago, like they get down to the red zone, it's like, well, we don't have to like force this issue. So like that could impact, say, Jalen Hurts' candidacy to win MVP. And like, no offense to Miles Sanders or Kenny Gainwell, like they're probably not going to. It has to be some sort of like star, some sort of like prominent face to win it. So Reddick's a good pick, but if it's a Chief who is the non-Mahomes Kelsey Chief that could win it?
Um,
Like
good
what the path you can see. Like we're not just naming players. Like if you like it's a small path,
I mean, if Pacheco just absolutely went off on the ground, I
right?
guess, like,
Or Chris
or
Jones had like 4 sacks or
Chris
something,
Jones,
something
yeah, Chris Jones
stupid.
is obviously definitely a real contender. Um,
That's it though.
if
Like
yeah, I don't know.
maybe like if Juju or MVS had like like a six
If
catch
if Justin
209
Reed is
yard game.
3 picks,
Yeah. Yeah, no. I just can't see it. But as far as Eagles, I would like possibilities obviously hurts. I would put both AJ and Devontae there. By the way, is Devontae Smith the best player in the NFL that wears number 6? Like, can you even think of another off the top of your head?
who are the quarterbacks? I can't even think.
Like, I
Prob-
can't think of another number 6. Like, the first one I think of is Mark Sanchez and then Jay Cutler, and they're both obviously not playing. I mean,
um,
like, it just hasn't. It's not a really popular number.
yeah, I don't know.
Chris Jones, the Cowboys' old punter, used to wear number 6. I mean, but that's like the
I'll
only
look
thing
that
I
up
can really think of. Like,
while
there's not a lot
you.
of number 6s in the NFL. Like, I hate that. Like, I mean, I'm not going to be a fan of Devontae's, although he is my friend. I did interview him ahead of the Super Bowl, the SB Nation NFL show. But like, Devontae's too good of a player to wear number 6. That's my point.
I mean, I think it works for him. He's a unique player.
But yeah. But anyway, so Hurts, Devontae, AJ, those are the offensive players I would say have a chance. I think you could, like, the Eagles are like a vogue enough team to where like there's a path where like Lane Johnson wins it. Like if Hurts is like never touched, you know what I mean? Like if not if
That'd
like
be
it
like
was
an
a
ugly
weird enough
offensive
game,
performance with a lot of running.
right? That's a possibility. Slay. I was gonna say this too. If we decide that the 2 best moves the Eagles made in the offseason were AJ and Hassan in whatever order, number 3 is James Bradbury. Like and the stability he provided to the secondary. I mean, again, like learn from Howie, NFL teams. Like, and I don't know how many times in the last like 15 years it's been the statement has been like the Eagles are doomed. It's going to take them 10 years to get out of this. Like they're stuck. Blah blah blah. Like you are never doomed. You are never stuck. If you are a fan of an NFL team and they are telling you that they are stuck, that they are limited, they are whatever, that is a lie. You can always think and adjust and adapt and get yourself out of it.
Unless you're like the Washington football team, until you sell your team, unless you're just like clearly egregiously awful ownership, then you're kind of stuck in that situation. But otherwise, by the way, Quandre Diggs, a good number 6 for the Seahawks.
It's rare
He's
though. Is my
made the Pro Bowl
point.
in
Like,
each of the past 3 seasons.
the Pro Bowl stinks. We don't need the Pro Bowl anymore. Like I'm so sick. You know what? I don't even want the games or anything. Just give me the roster and let it be like an accolade on players' resumes. But enough with this. Like, we don't need 12 alternates. It's stupid.
Brett Maher, also a really good number. No, he did. Is that his current
19.
jersey number? He wore 6 though with the Saints. Okay, that's what I'm seeing here.
He wore 19 after that though. So
yeah, I'm just looking at a Pro Football Reference list of number 6s. Not a to your point, yeah, not a lot of impressive names here.
It's not and it's like I think that derivations of 6 are not popular because 6 is kind of a clunky number. Like there are some 16s, right? Like obviously like Joe Montana, like there's is a little bit more popular. 26 is kind of, you got your running backs, but like 36 isn't that popular. 46, 56, kind of a cool linebacker number. 66 blah, 76 blah, 86. Can you name an 86?
Zach
I can
Ertz.
name one. Oh, I guess that's two. I was gonna say Steve Smith. That's it. Like, and it's not, and Dalton Schultz, obviously, but like, like we could sit here and name like 50 81s, 50 82s, 50, 100 88s, a lot of 80s, even 89s kind of cool. Did I say 86 for Steve Smith? No, that's
I
even
don't
wrong.
like 89.
But like, it's cooler than 86. Like 86 is lame. Like the 6
yeah,
just doesn't.
Better than both.
That's true. I mean, 88 is awesome. 86 is the worst number that a receiver used to be able to have. So whatever.
I think 80. I don't like. Well, it depends on the font. The Eagles font is the zeros look bad, but
80
also
looks
19. How about 19 for a quarterback? That's like horrendous, right? I mean, who's out here wearing 19 as a quarterback?
I mean, I agree. It's not great. And some of that
As a
is just that
quarterback, as a receiver number, it's okay, but as a quarterback, it's awful.
but some of that is like that the 9 is the upside down 6. You know what I mean? Like, and so
There you
nice, like proverbially, but like, it's just it's whatever. So yeah, like I I don't want to like Devontae. You know what I mean? Like I don't dislike him, but like if he was like number like 1 or number like 8,
No,
you know what I
that
mean? Like
hurts.
number like number, I don't know, like 80, he'd be
11.
such a good 81. He'd be an awesome 81.
No, he's
But
too small for 81.
11, he'd be a great 11. You know what I mean?
Well,
13,
that's AJ Brown, but
14.
yeah.
And okay, some things to fly through as it relates to the division, because this is the NFC East mixtape. We've talked about this a lot at Blog on the Boys, but just to kind of tie a bow on it. Since we last spoke, Brandon, Dan Quinn back as defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys. It's his 3rd season in the post. Very interesting. It's way more surprising than it was a year ago that he stuck around. It was still surprising then. It's just all the more surprising now. And a few days after that, Kellen Moore was announced. Actually, maybe 30 minutes in real time after the Eagles won the NFC. It was reported by the Dallas Morning News that Kellen Moore would be out as the Cowboys offensive coordinator. It was termed a mutual parting of ways, but he had time left on his contract, so that is technically a dismissal, a firing, whatever you want to call it. And very quickly, he was hired by the Los Angeles Chargers. So he is going to work with your boy and Twitter's boy, Justin Herbert. Dallas is going to move forward in a world where Mike McCarthy will call the plays. They, of course, do have to hire an offensive coordinator and name. My take on this, and mock or whatever if you want, not you specifically, but I'm not saying this is gonna be wonderful, but you have to see Mike McCarthy call plays. If you went the entire, and I've said BTBers have heard this, if you went the whole McCarthy era, however long that winds up being, without seeing this guy who everyone can make fun of his career, but who made his way on the offensive side of the ball and who was so successful in every way calling offensive plays, if you never had that happen, that would be a huge failure. So I am excited that we get to see that. And it may not work out, but I'm excited that we're at least going to know whether he is part of the solution or part of the problem.
Yeah, you did say this last offseason. Just let him fall on his own sword, basically. If he's going to go down, let him go down because he
his
went.
way.
It's kind of like how I think about it with Chip back in 2015. It was like, okay, is it amazing that you're giving your head coach personnel power? Typically, that doesn't work out, but if he fails, we all know it's Chip's fault and he has to go. There's no other one. You can't hide behind anyone else. There can't be another scapegoat here. It's Chip's. Either the Eagles are good because of Chip or they're bad because of Chip. And now a different situation, but similar kind of methodology or thinking or methodology to the Cowboys giving Mike McCarthy this control and now saying, okay, you have to fix Dak. We can't have another season like we did where he's leading the league in interceptions. You have to get this thing back on track. I think the Dan Quinn thing is a little funny from a standpoint of well, he just decided not to take a job. I mean, it's clear. To me, it seems clear that he's not. No one's beating down his door with, "Oh, we must have you, Dan Quinn," and he's just like, "Nah, I'm good." That's clearly not the case.
I think it's a case of multiple things being true. I think it's that maybe I do think he's one of the more coveted names, but I think part of it is this is kind of a down cycle, right? Frank Reich was the first coach hired. If you had needed a head coach, would he have been number 1 on your list? No. I mean, no offense, but he wouldn't have been.
It would have been.
Probably D'Amico Ryans. And like,
Yeah,
it's
I
amazing that
agree.
he's going to choose the Texans. And like, and so I think it's amazing, but then I think it's not
Well,
amazing. It makes
they have
sense
a
because
good
of the
they have a
draft
good
capital.
outlook relative to these other teams, at least with,
Right.
like,
Like
the number
they
2
have the
overall
draft
pick and then another
capital.
pick. Yeah.
They play in a lowly division, right? Like,
Easterby
it's
is
like,
gone, right?
yeah, but Casario's still there, so I mean,
Mm,
still whatever. But still, like, it's all the reason in the world to feel like you can remake that, and plus, there's a like homecoming element for him specifically.
right.
But so like, even if Frank Reich is your number 2, like that's what I'm saying. Like Dan Quinn is like one of the top 3, top 5 candidates, and there are 5 openings. Like, I mean,
Mm,
I'm not in love with Sean Payton. I've made that very well known. But even if you were, like, you have to give up enormous
yeah,
compensation to get him. Like,
which
he's
is so
just
dumb.
simply, it is dumb. But like, and him acting like again, I don't want to go down lost in the weeds. But so like, back to Dan Quinn, I think it's a case. I do think he's valued, but he may not be like, whoa, the number 1 guy. I think he also likes working with the Cowboys. I think the pressures of not being the head coach are a real thing. We see that with coordinators all the time as they get older that were head coaches. He gets to boost his resume, coaching for a very visible team, having one of the best defensive players in the NFL and Micah Parsons. So like, the opportunities are always going to be there for Dan Quinn, because of Micah and because of the, visibility of his team. And I think it's possibly true that he believes he is the like successor to Mike McCarthy if this does wind up failing, especially now with Kellen Moore officially out the building. Like if the Cowboys had to promote somebody, if they fired Mike McCarthy, it would obviously be Dan Quinn.
It's just funny when you look at the success of, let's say Doug and Sirianni, who were these relative unknowns at the time they were hired. Like no one else interviewed them. They didn't get interviews with other teams in their hiring cycles. And like you would give up like a first round pick and maybe more for Sean Payton. Like that just seems kind of crazy to me that you would give up something. If you're gonna give up anything, it would have to be like Bruce Arians with the Bucks. They like
Yeah,
swapped
like it
a
was like a
6 and
sixth round
it was like
pick. Yeah,
it was like
I,
sure, whatever.
I
But
don't want to do this because like people have done it a million times, but like also the presentation that like like Nick Sirianni's been a head coach for 2 seasons, but he's been a playoff team in both of them. He's been to the Super Bowl
mhm,
at least once. He may have won the Super Bowl once, right? Like people like I'm not trying to listen to like defending McCarthy. I've made it very well known. I think he's overhated and whatever, blah blah blah. But like like
overrated, I agree.
people bag on McCarthy because like, well, you didn't win 100 Super Bowls with Aaron Rodgers. Sean, like, he never went 7-9 3 years in a row with him. The way that Sean Payton did with Drew Brees. Like people only remember the effects of the 2017 draft class for the Saints. Like, and I think about this so much, and we can talk about this in the offseason. There are some losses that are just as good from a legacy standpoint as wins. And I think examples of that are the Des Cauditt game, right? That loss like is a powerful memory for a lot of Cowboys fans. I think another example of that is last year's divisional round loss for the Bills. Like that loss propelled all of the overrating that happened to them in the offseason. And I think another loss is the Minnesota Miracle that happened for the Saints. Like them
Mm.
losing that game like made them this martyr to people and made like everybody associated with that team to be like better than they actually were. Like it's the like loss of opportunity that people cope with.
I mean, you have Alvin Kamara saying they would have beat the S out of the Eagles if they had advanced, which is just like the biggest loser thing of all time. We didn't.
Like
You
they
lost.
may have like fine,
But
Alvin,
that
you
you
might have,
can't
but
you
you
have no
didn't.
right
Like
to say it. Yeah, you didn't. It did
like
not happen.
that's what I'm saying.
It's
Like you can
it's
deal
the
in
weakest
hypotheticals
thing.
and mays and mites, but it did not happen. Like, and the idea that like we were robbed. No, you weren't robbed. Like that's you. That was your player who missed that. You know what I mean? Like so. But like my point that has happened to Sean Payton. Like that mystique has like built him up to be better than he is. So like whatever. But this is about Dan Quinn,
On
Kellen
Quinn,
Moore.
to get it back to him, I guess, like, what do you think are the chances that Dan Quinn is the Cowboys head coach? Because it does seem like that's part of why he wants to stay, because
I
he feels
mean,
like there is some chance he could be the head coach there.
it
Not
it
not
lives.
not like immediately. I'm saying, I guess, after this season.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like that's part of what I think that's why go to Denver when you don't
What
have to
chance?
move.
What
Like
percentage
that's what I'm
chance
saying.
do you
Like
think
I
Dan Quinn
mean, it
is the head coach of
depends.
the Cowboys entering next season? Not
it
not
it all depends on the success of the offense, right? Like, I mean, it depends on what McCarthy is able to do and to a large degree what Dak is able to do. The thing I'm so interested to see this offseason, the Cowboys built Dak Prescott's contract to be able to restructure it this offseason and alleviate cap space, not a foreign concept by any means. But if they don't do that, I think it would be unwise of them to not do that. But if they don't, they leave themselves an out in 2024. And it's I would disagree with that, but it's not unfair to like want to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like I like, again, people live in these extremes where it's like he is amazing or he sucks. Like he's a top 10 quarterback. He's a very good quarterback who plays in elite ways for some windows, but the inconsistencies as of late are certainly very troubling. But if it would be not unfair for the Cowboys to say we really want to see it again in 2023 before we like do this or whatever. So I think it would be part of an overall reset in 2024. If it didn't work out, you could know beyond a shadow of a doubt McCarthy wasn't it. We're going to move on from Dak, blah, blah, blah. Maybe Dan Quinn's the guy to do that, but maybe it's not. Like, you got to stop, like, keeping 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Like,
yes,
the way, like,
great. I'm so glad you said that. Yes.
Like, would it be cool to head into 2024 if McCarthy's gone and Dak is gone with Dan Quinn? On the surface, yes. But like they went into the McCarthy era with Kellen Moore. And granted, I think highly of Kellen, but like that was unfair in a literal sense to McCarthy. And like the Garrett era began on a left foot as well. He was hired before Wade Phillips in 2007. Like at some point, let the most important person come in and start from day one. Like quit putting them behind the 8 ball from the very beginning.
Yeah, you don't need to have your coach in waiting in the building already. Like, you don't have to do that. I don't. It can happen. There could be scenarios where an interim head coach or whatever, there's a successor in the building and it can work out. That can happen, but does not have to happen that way. And I feel like the Cowboys almost think it has to happen that way. Like we have to have our guy ready, as opposed to like we can.
It's like always trying to have like it's cool if you have the next quarterback, next blah blah blah, like the Packers with Jordan Love. Like it's cool in a perfect world. Yeah, you always have like fallback options. And at the very least, if the Cowboys do have, I always thought it was silly that Mike McCarthy could be fired midseason this past year, even before. And you know that I said that here. I don't think that is impossible this season. Like if it were to be so bad, it's not. And you at least have Dan Quinn to fall back on for that, right? Like if things went bad, you have a secondary option to be your head coach for this upcoming season specifically. But while Dan Quinn's back, again, we kind of got to get through this stuff. Kellen Moore's gone, as are 7 other staffers, and a lot of them close friends of Mike McCarthy, Joe Philbin, Rob Davis, et cetera, et cetera. 6 of the people dismissed simply did not have their contracts renewed. If we're being literal, it's different than being dismissed. Kellen Moore and Doug Nussmeier, though.
Real quick on that, I think coaching contracts are typically 2 years for assistants. So yeah, I mean that's when McCarthy came in, right? 2 years ago, was it?
3
or no 3? Well, maybe it's like 2 or 3, whatever. But yeah, that's standard for contracts to run out like that.
So I don't know who their offensive coordinator will be. There are a lot of options, and I think the most likely archetype is like a McCarthy guy, right? Because if he's going to call plays, right, like he just, I don't mean to say like the job is meaningless or anything, but like it's McCarthy being offensive coordinator.
McAdoo, baby.
That's one of the possibilities. Tom Clements is a possibility, who did call plays for him in 2015 for a stretch when he gave it up. There's some internal promotions. Scott Tolzien is on the Cowboys staff. I mean, like there are different names.
I think ideally you should go like a little bit out of the box though, and not just hire someone Mike McCarthy knows. Someone, from, I don't know, something creative, something new, someone maybe from a college ranks or, I'm not saying literally this person, but something like, how the Steelers always have amazing wide receivers. Maybe hire like the Steelers wide receivers coach or like something like something creative, something fresh, something, innovative.
We've obviously done a lot of things about this subject as of late at Blog on the Boys. So, for any Cowboys fans or whatever fans that want to see that, you can listen to the Blog on the Boys podcast network or check out our YouTube channel. But something I said, and look, like have fun, whatever. Like, again, if you're an Eagles fan, you deserve the right to gloat. But like, I still maintain that Dak Prescott is a top 10 quarterback. We can sit here, quibble, whatever. But at some point, some of this or a lot of this has to be Dak's fault. Like we can't just sit here and be like, oh, well, Scott Linehan was fired and Jason Garrett was fired and Kellen Moore was fired and blah, blah, blah. And it can be true that there was merit to fire all those people that wasn't related to Dak. But it can also be true that like the common denominator amongst them is Dak. And so Dak is not without blame. Dak is not without fault. I said that a week ago. This is an offseason where there is nowhere to run, nowhere to hide for him. And that that's what I like the most about McCarthy taking over play calling. There is nowhere to run. There is nowhere to hide. And I certainly don't say that in the sense of like wanting him to fail, but I say it in the sense of wanting to learn, wanting to understand so that, either they win the Super Bowl or we know that is not going to be the case and they can move on.
Yeah, there's no ambiguity.
Right. Also, I wanted to get to this. This is a great way to kind of tie it back to things. There's not a lot of Giants or Commanders news. I guess maybe Mike Kafka is going to get a coaching job. I don't know if that's going to happen.
Getting a lot of interviews, and then
that's like the only thing. Yeah, that's like the biggest thing going on with the Giants. Oh, but actually, as we segue into tweets, what did you make of Kayvon Thibodeau's tweet?
Which one?
Where he said that, like, he tweeted during the title game. I'm gonna find it actually right now. Buy me
Something
some time.
about like the 49ers were like
Buy me some
pathetic
time.
or
Buy me some
whatever.
time.
We weren't getting beat as bad as the 49ers did, which
Buy me
he
some
kind of
time.
seems
Keep going.
like a BLE player to me, if we're being honest. For what he
Um,
did to Nick Foles and among other things, and going back to the pre-draft stuff, and you talked about when he was on that podcast around the NFL guys and kind of a weird vibe. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not in on him as a personality. I think he
I'm
has
still
some
looking.
loser vibes to him.
I'm still looking for that one. Where? Okay, here it is. Way this game look, we might be better than the 49ers. That was the tweet that upset a lot of people.
He also said, "Who are
Hang
you
on.
to?"
So, okay, well, so I'm getting there. I'm going in chronological order.
Gotcha.
So that was the first one. And then he was like kind of responding, with a lot of people. This I think we agree with. He said it's sick how you can come this far all for nothing, but then again, that's why we love it. Like that is true.
Yeah.
Like, so I liked this too. He said referees should have post-game interviews. Now there is the pool report, but I do think that like there should be some accountability there. So I'm with him on that.
The pool report is very like quick though. It's not like a rigorous. It's like you get like 1 or 2 questions. I feel like.
So Joe Staley is what you're talking about. Friend of our friend Rob Stats Greer. So kind of like we're 2 degrees away. He quote tweeted the tweet that Kayvon had where he said that they looked like they were better than the Niners. Joe Staley quoted that and said, and by the way, Joe Staley said, you are. Joe, just type the whole word.
Giants lost by 31 points.
Okay,
like,
so
what is Kayvon talking about?
Joe Staley said, you're a flash player who gets bodied by average tackles. Damn. Don't let the New York media affect you too much. And then Kayvon quoted that tweet and said, who are you, bro? ... And then he added a follow-up tweet, like a new organic tweet, and said, I don't care how famous you think you are. If I don't know you ... I don't know you.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, the
what do you think about the Empire State Building turning green and white?
What are you doing? What are you doing?
What? That is her. That is. I would be so pissed if I was a Giants fan. But that just speaks to.
Was there any explanation?
New York is not a real football town. It's not a real football town.
Was there explanation given? Like that they offered? I imagine it's like it's a worldwide building, whatever. Like blah blah blah. Is that what it is?
Well, they did the Chiefs too. I don't know if you saw that.
That's stupid.
So like they were just going to do both, but that's so. You don't have to do any. You don't have to do that.
Like it's different, but like if the city of Pittsburgh wants to do something and you sell up along these lines, no, but like hear me out. Like that's less offensive or less stupid. You know what I mean? Like the city of Dallas after the Astros won the World Series, like lit up and said like congrats. It's like you're in state, whatever. Like if there's at very least like an incredibly loose connection that you have to those people. But like this is literally a rival and literally a team who knocked you out of the playoffs.
Yeah, the week before. Yeah, that's terrible. But I love it. It's so good. And I guess maybe part of it was just because they have the green and white for the Jets. I don't know.
I mean, I'm sure they have all the colors, Brandon. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't think it's like, oh, well, we happen to have these colors laying around.
They only have so many colors in the budget. Did you see the tweet, by the way, that we're like, we'll see you at the Super Bowl? Or it's very funny when brands tweet to me. It's like, is the Empire State Building itself going to be at the? Is it going to go to the Super Bowl? Is it going to be in the stands?
I saw that. I think that's like a tease for like a commercial, like a Super Bowl commercial, like the way we saw the like M&M's thing last week. Like, yeah.
Why do we need to like promote the Empire? Like, what? So you go there? I don't know. It's strange.
I don't like whatever.
Does the Empire State Building need a Twitter account?
Who runs it? You know,
it's
like
what
do you tweet? Like, what do you tweet? Like the images of the building?
Hey,
like,
feeling really tall today. I don't
well, you could tweet that since you're 6'5".
6'9".
But anyway, last thing is a tweet. Micah Parsons stirred Cowboys fans up. I don't know if you saw this. I will say this. I love that Micah is such a football fan. As
and a Phillies
but
fan.
As somebody who is a great player for my favorite team, it's cool that he's like always watching like Monday Night Football or Thursday Night Football. Right? Like that's cool. That being said, I respect that Micah has has favorite players who he admires, whatever. He obviously knows Lane Johnson very well and like goes against him. And so he has a different level of respect and admiration for him than any of us could achieve. But the line that bothered people, I don't know if you saw this. He tweeted it and said, go win a Super Bowl for our division. No.
Whoa, I didn't even see that. Holy
Yeah.
crap! What the
No.
heck is that? I don't
No.
even like that as a. I don't want Cowboys fans to be rooting for the Eagles. That doesn't make sense to me. Like if you were rooting for the Eagles in the Super Bowl, that would make me less excited because then it's like, no, this is supposed to hurt you. You're not supposed to like this or enjoy this.
No, so the tweet reads, he tweeted it, so first he tweeted, I don't think people realize what Lane Johnson is doing right now. Freaking heroic.
Yeah.
One of my favorite players in this league. Totally fine with that. Like that's super fair
He
game.
goes
Like,
up
is it?
against him. It's
But that's what I'm saying.
respect,
Like,
and you
is
want to
it like,
build up your opponent too, because then when you beat them, it's more impressive. You're like,
yeah,
wow,
but
like
like,
I just beat that dude.
is it slightly annoying? Maybe, but like again, like whatever, like super cool with that. So Lane, I guess you didn't see this. He quote tweeted that with the handshake emoji.
Mhm.
So Micah responded, "Love you, big bro." Again, super cool. Keep going. Not many like you. Definitely not playing like you, healthy or with a torn groin. Go win a bowl for our division.
That doesn't
No,
make any sense.
no,
Although, but Mike is an Eagles fan. You know that. He is deep down. He is.
dude, do
He
not
went to
like
the
this.
Phillies World Series.
Well, he's from the area. That's so
That's
dumb to
right. He
penalize. Like
likes the
that's
Eagles.
so silly.
He's
He's
an Eagles
from
fan.
the area. Well, I mean, Jalen Hurts is a Cowboys fan. He had the Cowboys locker thing growing up. So
Yeah.
again, like I even if he was an Eagles fan growing up, like I actually would hate that less if he was like, you know what, I grew up an Eagles fan. Like I play for the Cowboys, so I understand this, but like I grew up an Eagles fan, so I won't be mad if they win it. Like I would like, I could deal with that, but the like for our division, nah. I like there's no divisional pride. Like that's the part that
No,
I get
other
hung up
than
on.
what we joke about here on the podcast and like, hey, the
Mhm.
NFC Beast that we created and there's no losing team. Other than like stuff like that. No. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else that we want to say? There was no Commanders
Still
news
no
whatsoever
news really on the Commanders. I think they're interviewing Anthony Lynn, and now certainly he
for
has more
their
time.
OC position, though. I
Yeah,
believe.
which
Right.
again, just the candidates for that job. Not, I mean, like really, Anthony Lynn, like really, that's the best you can do, and it
I do
is,
think
but
I think we went
not
too
great.
far on Anthony Lynn a little bit, especially like when you look at like some of the mistakes. And I don't mean like Brandon Staley like sucks, but like Brandon Staley's not perfect. You know what I mean? Like so, like some of it is I'm willing to kind of re-examine, I guess. But yeah, I'm not
I
like
think
worried about this.
the Commanders are going to have because they're going to release Carson Wentz, obviously, and that's going to clear up a lot of cap space. If I'm not mistaken, they're going to have the most cap space, or no, I guess the Giants. The Giants have 44 right now because the cap was set. Obviously, if you didn't know that, by the way.
So were the tag values, which is important for
Yes.
Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley and maybe
Yep.
Tony Pollard. We'll see.
So Commanders because they currently only have 6.6 million, but releasing Wentz is going to free up like a big chunk here. It's actually going to free up 26 because none of his salary is guaranteed. If I'm looking at this correctly, so there's some room to work with, but that's all about I have on the Commanders as their ownership situation continues to kind of linger out there.
I don't have anything else. I will offer my official Super Bowl 57 prediction next week on the NFC.
It's so much time. Like, I don't need to predict the game now.
Well, and like things can change. Like, what is like, I don't think there's like an injury that's going to like swing massively, but like every player
In
that's hurt is
theory,
going to, yeah, I mean, like whatever. Are you bothered that the Kelsey's mom wears Travis's jersey on the front?
no.
Hmm.
I think Jason has said she likes Travis more. Not that like she hates him, but I think he's the baby. He's the little brother. So I think there's something to
Sure.
that. From my understanding, again, I'm an only child, but I think seeing that dynamic before, where the youngest child kind of gets more of the affection, the attention like that. I get it.
Maybe it's also literally true in that sense. Or like the jersey technically goes like if you look at it like back to front, right? Like so you started with the older one, you move forward frontwards. Wow. Okay. Looking forward to next week. Brandon,
Should be good.
Give us anything you want, and then we leave.
Anything you want. I mentioned this on BGN Radio, which is why the company Esti, ESTIE, or sorry, ESTI, sent me a bunch of hummus and dips and snacks. But man, an elite combo is taking, and if you can't get that hummus, because I think they're more local to New Jersey area, just find a really good hummus and I don't know if these are national or you can get them around, but it's a pretzel. It's like a hard pretzel as a snack brand called Unique. And You get the extra salty if you like a salt. If not, you can, obviously cater to your preference there. But I just think it's an elite combo, and I'm not inventing that. But get a really good hummus, get a really good pretzel to dip that in. Man, it's got everything going on. You got the texture, the crunch, you got the temperature contrast. I like it. It's great.
Also,
It's a good
if you
time.
want some beef jerky for the
That's
big
right.
game, head to righteousfelon.com and use discount code BTB15 or
To support
BGN15. Yeah.
Blogging the Boys or BGN15 to support BGN. And I have this on good authority, RJ, that the Eagles at their hotel in Arizona for the Super Bowl specifically ordered Righteous Felon craft jerky to have for the hotel, like a lot. They want it stocked up because
Well,
that's an official. That's a snack that they
it's an
have.
official. We don't say this on this show. It is an official snack that is
I don't
accessible
want
to
to say
both
official
Eagles.
snack of the.
Well, okay.
'Cause I don't know if that's true, but
Okay,
the players eat
it is a
We
snack
do know that. Yeah.
that is accessible to both
Yep.
the Eagles and the Cowboys at their training facilities. That is
And they
100%
like it. The
true.
players like it a lot. Yep.
Right. All right. That's peace. Get some Nelson Mandela later.